Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth.
Did you call him a child? Did you call the child
Your business.
It is my own business. You call him Okay, why don't you have the balls to say it right now again?
You.
Okay. Alright, that's what you say.
A few moments later.
Rochester City Attorney has filed 3 disorderly conduct charges against a Rochester woman who allegedly called a 5-year-old the N-word at Roy Sutherland Playground. Those charges come almost 4 months after the incident.
Soon after.
The verdict is in the trial of Shiloh Hendrix, who was accused of disorderly conduct for calling a black child a racial slur at a Rochester park in April of 2025. The jury finding her not guilty of the disorderly conduct charge against the minor child, but did find her guilty of the disorderly conduct charge against the adult cameraman, the defense expressing his displeasure with the result tonight.
This entire thing's a shakedown. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. The prosecutor should be ashamed of himself. The judge should be ashamed of herself. I had a battle here for 4 days on a stupid misdemeanor disorderly conduct. This is nuts.
Oh, it's the butthurt round the world. Let the predictable white racist whining begin.
I don't think calling someone a name should ever be considered a crime, right? Even if it's offensive or whatever, there should never be any circumstance in which it's considered a crime.
And people are saying this is not two-tier justice. It falls under this law. Well, then how come every time a black person says the N-word?
Right.
It's the same word.
If you look at this, she got very lucky. She got a $1,000 fine, 90-day jail sentence stayed. You look at Chud the Builder, a guy that was assaulted outside of the courtroom or whatever, and then he shot the guy, and now the guy can't get a bail bond.
Only one people are allowed to say this one word.
100%.
This is legal protection for that incident.
And there's people like Carmelo Anthony that actually killed somebody on a high school campus and was able to get a bail bond. But a guy that said the N-word and that was attacked.
Well, I don't even know if they're applying it just because of the word or they're saying because of the way that she interacted.
They're applying this law because she's white. Absolutely.
So it seems like the N-word is like the third rail. It's like the most powerful thing you can say and the most penalized thing that you can do. And
they give it a lot of power.
And I don't want to live in a society where we enable people to go out and commit misdeeds, commit little crimes to trigger a reaction, and then they get to play victim. That's how the system has been abused.
Then he ought to be really angry about Chud the Builder, right? Oh. And you hear what they say about, I don't think that ever calling someone a name should ever be a crime. These are the same scumbags who they want to criminalize, calling them racist. You shouldn't be able to call somebody a racist no matter how racist they are. These are the guys who want to criminalize every form of speech. Look what moron DeSantis did down in Florida. If you actually dare to say that racism exists, they made that into a crime, at least for teachers they did. You couldn't even say that the founders of the United States were racists and slave owners. Oh, you can't say that oppression exists. That's a crime. They criminalized that in Florida. And did any of these scumbags have a problem with that? Of course not. And now their chickens are coming home to roost. Ah, the whinging, moaning, and caterwauling of the white right. It's music to my ears. Jesse Jackson used to say, keep hope alive. Well, the white supremacists are trying to keep cope alive. But you notice what the morons on Tim Fool's Little Sewer said. They're bringing up Chud the Builder, bringing up all these other cases, and the lie about Chud the Builder being attacked, it just goes to show these morons tell themselves all kinds of frauds and lies and fairy tales. They just repeat this garbage to themselves, and they think because their empty-headed audience likes it, well, that means it's real somehow. And then reality hits them in the mouth and they don't know what to do. This is the white right trying to do their own half-brained version of conjuring magic like the white media does. But in this case, their bag of tricks is empty and all they can do is rage. Shiloh Hendrix made headlines for hurling racial slurs on a playground at a child. The white racist trash began sending her their state mental health disability checks, and she thought that made her a hero. But at least one prosecutor in Minneapolis actually decided to do their job for a change and charged the heifer with 2 counts of disorderly conduct. And last week she was convicted on one of those counts. The court sentenced her to supervised probation, 200 hours of community service, and she's ordered to pay a $1,000 fine. What's interesting to me is you got the white supremacists running around saying, oh, she was in danger of going to prison. No, she wasn't. These were misdemeanor charges. The whole nation was watching, however, and that's the part that they're really upset about. A high-profile humiliation like this humbles not only this skank, but also her degenerate white supremacist supporters. Now, the racists are saying that the verdict doesn't matter anyway because she did the white racist grift where you say racist crap about black people and then watches the inbred send what few pennies they got. So she's got a little bit of money now, certainly more than $1,000, so it doesn't matter, right? Except if that's the case, why the world are they complaining so much? Why are they so outraged? It's all much to do about nothing, right? The white right, as part of their regular delusional rantings, are saying that she's a free speech martyr. I guess this is their psychological consolation prize. No, stupid. A free speech martyr is someone who challenges power. Shiloh Hendrix is just a garden variety racist, which explains why these white racists are supporting her. She's no more a free speech martyr than someone who's cursing and throwing racial slurs at the airport or at a school or any other public venue. And she was treated far more leniently than people who have done far less. And what about her attorney? Whoever the hell this court-appointed shyster is, he should be ashamed. And if she was dumb enough to pay him, then she deserves every penny that she's lost. If he couldn't beat these charges, especially with a white jury, then it's just time to hand in your law degree and go start your new career over at the Waffle House. But he'd probably find a way to screw that up too. I don't get it. These white supremacists are whining that this doesn't mean anything and why she's guaranteed to get this verdict overturned on appeal. Well, if it really means nothing, then why are they all upset about it? After all, it's a misdemeanor charge. And yet her shyster attorney, who couldn't even beat a couple of misdemeanor charges, he's talking about appeals, and the reason he's doing all that is because he knows she's still got some money left over from these morons, and in the end, he'll be billing her until he gets it all. Now, if this heifer had been smart, well, if she was smart, she would never have acted the way she did, but if she did have any remaining brain cells left, she would have simply taken the money from the online racists, then told the DAs that she wanted to enter a very quiet plea deal if the prosecutors would basically just give her a slap on the wrist, just give her a tidy fine, or not even a fine, just go ahead and give her some sort of probation, and not have to split the money with a lawyer at all, because truth be told, this whole thing ended that way anyway. This is exactly what would have happened if she had simply taken a plea deal regardless. Well, it just goes to show that the thug cops over in the Adams County Sheriff's Department, the guys who tried to racially harass Afro Man, they're not the only idiots who thought to themselves that if they went to court, things would go their way. It wasn't worth the money that she lost going to trial, and it certainly won't be worth an appeal either, but as Gordon Gekko said, a fool and his money never should have been together in the first place. This is the cost of white fragility. She was a belligerent fool on a playground, and now she's been humiliated all over again. But her so-called supporters, these morons never learn. They think that they can win battles in the real world with online memes. Copying and pasting racist talking points and downvoting things they don't like, that crap may be cute online, but it means absolutely nothing in the real world. But for these guys, hate speech, that is their definition of free speech. They never mention it at any other time for any other subject. People get dragged out of public meetings all the time by the police, usually white, and not surprisingly, none of these so-called free speech advocates ever says a word about that. Yeah, they're only concerned about free speech if it means insulting or threatening a black person. That's free speech. But why does this verdict scare them? Because that's what this really is. As I've always taught you, whenever you see somebody who's out here getting angry about something, the first question you should ask is, what is this person afraid of? Because most manifestations of anger are rooted in fear. Well, what scares these white supremacists is that it could be them next because they act just like her. White supremacy means supreme, and that means it cannot be touched under any circumstances. Yeah, well, this heifer got touched. These creeps get traumatized whenever racism is punished, especially when anti-black slurs are punished. Remember the case of Corey Pujols, the Dunkin' Donuts manager in Florida who killed a child rapist after the scumbag called him the N-word? The white supremacists hated that he walked, but then again, he should never have been charged in the first place. He was a hero. He stopped a child rapist and he defended his own coworkers and himself, but instead, he had some trumped-up charges brought against him by a crooked prosecutor who wound up having to basically walk away in the end anyway. Now, if the racists want to be angry about someone getting prosecuted, what happened to Corey Pujols is something they should have been up in arms about. Oh, but they like racist slurs against black people, so of course they were claiming that was free speech. It was wrong that he got killed, so now you can kill a white person for saying the N-word. Well, that certainly didn't seem to scare Shiloh Hendrix any, now did it? And then there was the case of Jussie Smollett. Millions of taxpayer dollars wasted, and that on charges that were essentially misdemeanors, and yet the white media nationwide wanted to cover it. A third-rate actor on a second-rate show, and yet the white media was acting like, oh, this is going to be the OJ trial. That's because they already knew that the fix was in. That's the only reason that they were there. None of the white racists who were whining that this racist puke Hendrix was rightly charged and convicted were saying how stupid it was that Jussie Smollett was not only charged, but actually put on trial for an allegedly false police report. I don't know how much money it cost to prosecute Shiloh Hendrix, but I know it was nowhere near the millions of dollars that were wasted on trumped-up charges against Jussie Smollett. That was political. But it was also something that the white racists had no interest in speaking out on. The white supremacists are furious about this, and it's good to see. They should be laughing it off, but they can't because they don't know how to laugh off taking an L. They're furious because they know that if they wind up in the same situation as Hendrix, there's probably not going to be some gang of bigots who float them some GoFundMe money. And you know what else isn't going to happen? Shiloh Hendrix doing this again. If she was really so bold, then she would be spouting racial slurs to the world the second that the verdict was handed down. But she's not. Instead, she's real quiet these days. Real quiet. She's been whipped, chastised, and humiliated. You couldn't pay that piece of dirt to throw any racial slurs now, and that's because she knows better. This is what happens when a white supremacist gets spanked. And yes, before anyone mentions it, I do know that the victims of this crime were Somalians. Yeah, the same people who have always told foundational black Americans that they are not black, that they're Somalian. And yet when a white racist calls them slurs, suddenly they become black. And they also appealed to a legal structure that we fought for and that we did battle to put in place. And I certainly hope that any black immigrants who came to the U.S. are listening to this. The laws that these Somalians turn to get justice are laws that don't exist in other countries where the Somalians immigrate to. You don't see these laws in places like Germany. You don't see it in Scandinavia. You don't see it in Britain, and there's a good reason for that. These black immigrants go to these other countries, but they don't fight white power. They instead decide that they're going to play the game of, well, we're just going to try to find a way to fit in. So in other countries, the racists do whatever they want, say whatever they want. And these guys try to pretend to themselves as if it's not as bad as all that. They lie to themselves and say, well, I mean, that kind of thing doesn't happen here that often. Yeah, like we saw at the BAFTAs, right? It doesn't happen often at all, right? Except all the time. And it's just a fact. Foundational black Americans are built different. We made it where disrespecting us carries a price. Think about that the next time you want to get angry when we call out disrespect from the diaspora.
What I feel would have been more appropriate was not probation or paying a fine, would have been jail time, to 60 days jail time, to send the message that if you hurt our children in our parks, we're going to hold you accountable.
People need to understand the entire reason that the current Rochester NAACP president Wally Elegbetti felt very emboldened to say what he said is because we had already made it safe for him to do so. Oh, and on a side note, I think that the Nigerian Wally Elegbetti, you should know that he's running for mayor of Rochester. Well, that must be why he's so eager to get in front of the cameras. And while he's running for mayor, we also get a chance to meet his wonderful, nice family, like the United Colors of Bennington. But the point happens to be, this man is using laws that he didn't fight for in a country that he did not found. I hope that he at least remembers that the next time that any Nigerian forms their mouths to say that foundational black Americans don't work hard or that foundational black Americans are somehow lacking or deficient. I'm just saying. Because we all noticed that these Somalians weren't spouting the usual, well, I'm a hard-working immigrant and there's no racism in America. You know, it was unkind, but no, these guys are the ones saying we demand justice. What does justice look like? Well, we want these white folks punished. But the white supremacists, they're scared and they're angry and they know that next time this could and probably will be one of them, to which I would tell them, obey the law and nothing will happen. Besides, this Shiloh puke, she got off a lot easier than Vonell Cook did, so count your blessings. Meanwhile, the white supremacists can hold this L again. We've gone from white lies to white cries, but the noise is no less loud or stupid. And to think, a year ago, trash like Matt Walsh were praising Shiloh Hendrix as being the end of white guilt. But, as this verdict showed, it was only the beginning. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Krishan Span, Cornell Sly, David White, Onan X, and Gavin Andrade. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.